I would like to welcome everybody back to the Football's Family Podcast on the eve of the Super Bowl. Super Bowl down in New Orleans, and hopefully everything is safe down there, especially what happened close to the national championship game. I know if you were down there listening to this, I hope you're having a good time. Go to Cafe Du Monde and get all those buttery goodness things that they have down there, but just don't inhale the powder. I did that one time and it was not that good. Not that good. Food was good, and heroin powder was not. But I guess tonight I want to deal with just a few things about the Super Bowl that's just obvious. Number one, you have the team that America has grown to dislike and the team that America really didn't want to be there. You have the Chiefs because even though the Chiefs have a rabid fan base, and we all know they do, and if you are a diehard, longtime Chief fan, you're living in the high life right now. I was looking at the last few Super Bowls. The Chiefs have been in one, two, three of the last one, two, three, four Super Bowls. Excuse me, five. One, two, three, four of the last five Super Bowls. There we go. That's living the high life. And y'all have been in game after game after game that championships are there and you have the possibility of winning big. But we all know because of what happened with the Patriots and even the 49ers back in the day that victory breeds contempt. The more you win, the less likely that there are going to be a huge following. Now, that being said, you'll see a lot of kids wearing Patrick Mahomes jersey, and they should. He's an amazing player. But at the same time, you keep hearing these things like with the Patriots. I wish another team would win. I wish another team would win. I wish another team would win. And you're getting that in this particular case, your success has brought about some type of attitude toward you, rightly or wrongly. Congratulations for making it to another Super Bowl. I kind of wanted to see the Bills and the Lions, so one of those teams would get off the schneid. But we got. On the other hand, you have the Eagles, who had an amazing season. Saquon Barkley is a man above among all others in the NFL. He's an amazing player. This year, if you look at him and Derrick Henry, you see that the running back position is not dead in the NFL, and that is important because I think both of those guys prove that they're well worth the signing. If you're a Giants fan, what do you think about that trade now? Just think about that. What do you think about that trade now? I think Saquon is going to be the key if the Eagles win the Super Bowl this year. It's going to be on him. Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, their defense, yes, but I think Saquon. If the Chiefs can control Saquon, you'll see what happens. But if they can't, and Saquon goes crazy up there and beats Timmy Smith's rushing record, I think you're going to find that the Eagles win. That being said, outside of Philly, how many people wanted to see the Eagles make it? I think most people were like me. They would love to see the Vikings because of the season they were having, or the Lions because of the season they were having, make it, or even the Commanders, Jaden Daniels doing what he did. Eagles were not the first or second or third pick to make it to the Super Bowl. But we have what we have here. You have Jalen Hurts, you have Patrick Mahomes, you have a great offense on both sides, you have great defenses on both sides. It could be one of the best Super Bowls we've ever had. Hopefully, it would not be like Super Bowl 53 in Atlanta where the Patriots beat the Raiders, or the Rams, I should say, 13-3. I don't want that. But I think it's going to be an interesting game, a rematch of just a couple of years ago, where the Chiefs beat the Eagles by 3 on a kind of a phantom penalty. And I want y'all to think about that. That seems to be the case for a lot of stuff that you're hearing about the Chiefs now, is they get all these calls. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but yes, they do get all these calls. Uh, you have to imagine why that's the case. Why does the NFL want the Chiefs to get out? And I think the number one reason is because they got a good team, yes. But number two is because how much they emphasize Taylor Swift. You just look at her. She will be up on every other score that the Chiefs have, especially if Travis Kelce scores a touchdown. And I thought this was funny. We're going to get into to the purpose of this podcast here in just a second. I thought it was funny that that Travis Kelce was actually asked if he would propose to Taylor Swift that night, and he didn't give much of an answer. So I think that's kind of a funny thing to think about. It's a football game. Let's keep it between the lines. Let's enjoy the game. Chiefs fans, you have the best team in the NFL for the past 7 or 8 years. Eagles, y'all have proved time and time again that you are better than most people give you credit for. And once again, you're in the Super Bowl. So both fan groups, you're rabid and you should be. Enjoy the game. Let's have a good game. But the big thing is the Chiefs are in the position to be a three-time consecutive Super Bowl champions. Never happened before. And I was looking at the teams that had the possibility. And I want to go through a couple of them real quick, or every one of them if I could. The Green Bay Packers, the first and second Super Bowl, had the opportunity to be a three-time Super Bowl champion. But the big thing is the team started changing a little bit, and Vince Lombardi left the Packers. Now, if you count the championships they had earlier, it was a very consistent, very powerful club. But as for Super Bowls, the Chiefs didn't get it. You go down a few more years, and the Miami Dolphins, who we don't always think of being a juggernaut, they were three times in a row in the Super Bowl. The first time they got defeated by the Cowboys, but then the next two times they defeated the Redskins and the Vikings. Now remember, the Vikings in this time in the late 60s, early 70s were also juggernauts, but they ended up losing just like the Bills did later on. So the Dolphins, that undefeated season, and then beating the Minnesota Vikings, you find that that is one of the times that somebody could have won three Super Bowls in a row. It was funny that they actually lost their first one and won the next two. It's usually you win the first two and lose the third. Kind of hop down there, just the next couple Super Bowls. You have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh Steelers wins two. They beat the Vikings and the Cowboys, which the Cowboys game was a fantastic game. They were beginning their dynasty that would take over the 70s. And when you have those two Super Bowls in a row, you think, well, we'll get three. That's when the Oakland Raiders came in. The Oakland Raiders and the Cowboys, if it wasn't for the Steelers, the Oakland Raiders and the Dallas Cowboys would have won the 70s. The Steelers kept them down. And I think Tom Landry would have had more Super Bowls than he could have counted if it wasn't for the way the Steelers were playing. Steelers have a chance. Later on, they do another two in a row. They beat the Cowboys again, and then they beat the Rams again. But then they don't make it back to the Super Bowl the year after that. Oakland does. So this is the thing that you find with a lot of the two-peats. It's hard to do it three times in a row. Now, why is that? I think health plays a part in it. I think schemes play a part in it. I think people learn what you're there for and what you do. I think all those things play a part. But for the Steelers to win two Super Bowls and two more Super Bowls just shows how good of a team they were. It would take a few more years before the 49ers do it again, or 49ers win two in a row in 89 and 90. The Cincinnati Bengals, they beat them at the Pontiac Silverdome 20-16. They beat them 20-16. Excuse me, I'm sorry. That was in Miami. Pontiac Silverdome was earlier in 82. I'm sorry. But they beat them in Miami. Then they beat, and I remember that game. That was the game where Joe Montana, when everybody's kind of nervous, they were driving to win. They were down 13-16 to the Bengals. He looks up and says, "Isn't that John Candy?" And it just relieved everybody. They were relaxed knowing that their quarterback was going to lead them. And it was an awesome crossing route to John Taylor that won the game for him. It was an amazing game. The next year in New Orleans, of all places, San Francisco beats the Broncos 55-10. And I remember watching that game. By the time I made it home from church, the game was pretty much over. John Elway could not win the game by himself. That was a game. Then they get beat. The 49ers get beat, knocked out of playoffs. The Giants win. The Redskins win. They both beat the Buffalo Bills. Now, I want to say something here about that. Buffalo, if it wasn't wide right, I think he would have went on to win four Super Bowls in a row. I think there was so much momentum that would have happened if the kick made it, that I think you could have beat the Redskins the next year and you could have beat the Cowboys the next 2 years. I think it was that good. One kick changed the destiny of the Bills Mafia. It actually pretty much started the Mafia. If it wasn't for those four Super Bowls, would you have had such a rabid fan base? It'd still be rabid, but would it have been the same thing? Uh, I think y'all would have won four Super Bowls in a row. Speaking of which, the Cowboys beating you 2 years in a row. First time you find back-to-back teams playing each other, back-to-back Super Bowls with the same teams play each other with different results when it comes to blowouts. The first one, 52-17. The second one, 30-13. Both of them were pretty bad, but that first one, I remember that. That was awful. Don Beebe was really was one of the heroes in that particular game. You hop down just a few more years and you see my Broncos. That time the Broncos win, they beat the Packers and they beat the Atlanta Falcons. And what's neat about this in a way is the previous year in New Orleans, the Green Bay Packers played the New England Patriots, the Drew Bledsoe, Brett Favre game with Reggie White and everything like that. And you said, well, what does that have to play in it? That year in 96, when I look at how 96 to 97, when I look at the Broncos, the made up with all the guys that they had, all the weapons they had, to me, that was the best team fielded by the Broncos during that time that I've ever seen. I think it changed the next year, obviously, because they won the Super Bowl. But that previous year, they were the best team in the NFL, and the Jacksonville Jaguars come into Denver and beat them bad. That would have been one of those three-peats that you could have possibly had. But here's the thing. John Elway made that Super Bowl against the Packers what it was, getting hit, spinning around like a helicopter, winning the game that way. He actually ran a score in instead of throwing it. He told the guy that he did that to, he was going to throw it to. He said, I didn't trust myself. I had to score. You understand that? We get that. John always lost so many Super Bowls. He wants to win one. That is the year where the owner of the Broncos said, this one's for John, Pat Bowlen. Um, but if they had won that Super Bowl, if they had made the Super Bowl and beat the Packers and then go back the next year to play the Packers again and won, would John Elway would he have retired after the second Super Bowl that he won? My guess is he probably would, because after the second Super Bowl winning, he said, I'm going to go out on top. And he did. So you say, well, could there have been a three-peat there? I don't know. Would they have won a Super Bowl without John Elway? You go down a few more years. New England wins by field goals against Carolina and Philadelphia. This begins the years of the Patriots. They beat the St. Louis Rams just earlier, and then they go ahead and repeat as champions a couple more times. Then the next year, we see that Pittsburgh does it. So you see the pattern. You go two Super Bowls, you drop off. You don't always come back. You got to make the best of it that you can. It won't happen again until the Patriots again beat Seattle. Later on, they beat Seattle in the Super Bowl in 2015. But then you find that there is not going to be another repeat Super Bowl team until the Kansas City Chiefs do it. And that's where we are today. What do you think about this? Do the Kansas City Chiefs have the opportunity? Do they have the potential to win this game? Absolutely. What would you do, and how would you think a three-time Super Bowl champion would look? How would that change Super Bowl history? And if they win today, or tomorrow, I should say, would that mean that they have a chance to four-peat, or would somebody finally figure out how to beat them, like the Bills or the Bengals or anybody like that? Would they finally have a chance to figure out how to beat them in the playoffs to keep them out of the Super Bowl? Because if you have Patrick Mahomes, you're going to always have a chance to win. Some of the plays that he did there in this playoff run, especially against the Texans, I'm like, oh my goodness, is there anybody out there that can stop this guy from playing? He is amazing. Kansas City, you did well drafting him. You did. And you're benefiting from it. You have the chance for a three-peat. Will we see history played out Sunday, tomorrow, February the 9th in New Orleans? What do y'all think? Leave a comment down below. If you want to follow me, just press subscribe and ding that bell so you'll know that I am on and everything. Thank you for following Football's Family Podcast.